So $100 oil is not out of the question.
Morning, folks. Here's the view from the lease. As you can see, we just keep getting snow on top of snow. Gonna have to get a hold of the owners soon, see if they're gonna pay for me to clear the road out. So anyways, folks, happy Sunday to you. Here's our end of the year information from the NDIC, and I'll put a link in below for the full video in case you want to check the whole thing out. Y'all be blessed. Have a good Sunday.
Let's talk statistics a little bit here, and then we'll talk a little bit of policy, and then we'll take questions. So statistically, production was really, really flat. It was down 3,700 barrels a day, which amounts to 0.3% reduction in oil production. Just a comment on that, out of that 3,700 barrels a day, 3,000 barrels a day of that was on Fort Berthold Reservation. So what we know is going on over there is whenever we have natural gas impacts, it hits harder over there than it does anywhere else in the state, that being the core area and also at the far end of a lot of our gas gathering infrastructure. So that's the place where it hits the hardest. And so I think we're attributing the slight production decline, and in particular on Fort Berthold, to that. You'll recall that we had a series of maintenance operations on northern border through the month of October, and so people were warned about that, and they did a great job of meeting the gas capture requirements. Often talks about where unless we can find a way to expand our gas export capacity, we ultimately can end up limited on our oil production. Good news is that 1.11 million barrels a day still keeps us 1% above revenue forecast. So for those that follow the state revenue forecast, we're exceeding it by about 1%. New Mexico also saw a little bit of a decline in October. Not as much as we did, but 0.2%. And of course, we track New Mexico because they're running roughly 100,000 barrels a day above North Dakota production right now. And the split between Bakken Three Forks and legacy pools has stayed steady now for many months at 96% Bakken Three Forks. So that's the great news along there. When we look at natural gas, if we scroll down and take a look, you can see that the decline in natural gas was actually even higher. It was about 1% in terms of natural gas production. And so that's a little unusual, but again, that's people responding to the northern border situation and restricting production on their highest GOR wells, which of course is around Fort Berthold and in that core area. So the policies we have in place appear to be working extremely well. As far as people, just to touch on oil prices, they were really strong in October. So North Dakota's market was $75 a barrel. That's 50% above revenue forecast. So really, really positive in terms of revenues for the state, 1% above volume and 50% above price. You know that Omicron hit shortly after that in early November, and world prices dropped, but they're responding again, and so we're back above $70 for West Texas, and we're estimating that today we're at $69 a barrel and some change in North Dakota, so well above revenue forecast estimates going into the biennium. When we look at gas capture, great news. And when I get over the gas capture numbers, I'm going to have to issue some corrections. So I apologize. Somehow we're well exceeding the limits that were set by the Industrial Commission. When we look at rig count, a little bit better. We're in the 30s now, but we're tracking New Mexico. They're at 88. And so even though a rig in North Dakota yields twice the oil production of a rig in New Mexico, we don't we don't match in terms of a rig ratio. So we're going to continue to lose ground there. 32 is not terrible, and it's not horrible news. And I think one comment to that is I just looked at some oil and gas journal survey work that they had done, and they surveyed shale operators around the nation. Interestingly enough, it showed a lot of what we thought we had been seeing, that CapEx, or capital investment, in the Bakken was down 14% this year from last year. So 2020 to 2021 was a minus 14% for the Bakken, whereas it was about a plus 15% for the Permian. Now, the good news is that that same survey of Bakken operators shows that they plan to increase their capital investment 19%, 21 to 22. So we, in fact, are on track to start seeing that rig count march up and completions march up, and we should get back into a slow growth mode on production. Little discussion with one of our major rig operators. They've got 4 rigs that have been contracted to leave the yard in February. So that would put us in the upper 30s. They are struggling to get trained personnel to make that happen, but they've got a couple months to get that done. On the completion side, came in at just 1 over the revenue forecast. So there again, we like what we see there. And November was a very strong month at 60. So with fewer rigs and 10 frac crews operating, what that did was we saw our DUC well count drop by about 50 wells. We went from over 500 down into the 400s. So again, as we had been projecting, they're using a lot of frac crews to complete those DUC wells and reduce that inventory. We saw a little bit of an increase in our inactive well count. That's kind of normal going into the fall. We'll be keeping an eye on that. We really want to keep that number below 2,000. That's record number of producing wells, new all-time high at 17,163. And some interesting information came out from a report that I followed that we're getting pretty mature in the core area, 80 to 85% drilled out. But in the tier 2 and tier 3 area, where we're starting to see lots and lots of 3-mile laterals, and actually I had some conversations this week with an operator that wants to drill 2 4-mile laterals early next year. So we're seeing that technology applied to the tier 2 area, which actually results in wells that are just as good as 2-mile wells in the core area. And the tier 2 area is only about 50% drilled out. The tier 3 area is only about 25%. So there's still a strong inventory going forward. Talked a little bit about Fort Berthold already. We're up 1 rig, 1 on fee land, 1 on trust land. And we did see a decline in production there. In fact, the entire statewide decline happened on Fort Berthold. The world supply, there's still a lot of oil in storage around the world, but we're probably estimating a 1.5 million barrel a day shortfall in terms of production versus demand. So they're reducing that supply, and you can really see it in U.S. supplies. That's the first time in recent memory that we have been below the 5-year window, the 5-year average window there in terms of oil supplies in the U.S. So I guess I would say really enjoy the relief that you've seen right now in gasoline prices because it can't possibly last in that situation. Is that the last 18 months we have way underinvested, and that what we're building is a supply shortage. So $100 oil is not out of the question. We're in the low 70s with, if this keeps going and we continue to see underinvestment like we saw in 2021, it's definitely not out of the question.